Please be seated. Well, our lesson from Acts, crafted by the author of Luke's Gospel, describes that moment when God, in the physical form of Jesus, leaves his followers and ascends to heaven. We mark this moment as the Feast of the Ascension. It takes place each year on a Thursday, 40 days after Easter, and it is observed today, the following Sunday. Now, John's Gospel today tells us that Jesus' ascension up to heaven affirmed the incredible good news that we too will enjoy eternal life in heaven. Now, while comforted by this assurance, what follows for we humans is a never-ending attempt to discern what this heaven, this eternal life, will be like, right? And I'm here today to give you the answer. Whoa, that got everybody's attention, right? But I'm pretty certain that many of you will find the answer disappointingly unspecific. You see, the Bible presents stunning diverse descriptions. Heaven is described as beyond the skies or on a glorified earth. It is sometimes described as a garden or a city, a court or a temple, a mansion with many rooms, or a pasture, a place of rest, or a scene of many, many activities. Then, in the post-biblical centuries up to and including the present time, painters, writers, cartoonists, and filmmakers have decided that heaven is a place where robed new arrivals walk on clouds, listen to harps, make their case before St. Peter at the gates, and can always play golf without getting a tee time. Right, Tom? However, what saints, mystics, and theologians do seem to agree about heaven is that in whatever form in heaven we may be in, we will have a conscious, intimate existence with God that will transcend the suffering that takes place while we are biologically alive. That is the description of heaven that I want to leave you with. In other words, a conscious, intimate existence with God that will transcend the suffering that takes place while we are biologically alive. Now, by holding on to this, we put to rest concerns over such things as, in heaven, what age and condition will my body or form be in? I don't want to spend eternity or even a single moment worrying whether I will exist in the form of my 13-year-old self, pimples and all. Now, you are probably asking, what if Christians' conceptions of life to come are so varied in the Bible, history, theology, literature, film, and folklore? What good are they? Should we avoid them? I don't believe so. I'm certainly not going to refrain from letting my mind drift to visions of heaven that I can relate to. And although my imaginings of heaven will always be a metaphor, they are a taste of heavenly grace that has and continues to comfort me and assuage any grief at the loss of those who have died. Each of us mix and match elements from our personal repertoire of images, stories, and experiences, and then we personalize them into a heaven we can relate to, one consistent with a loving God. This is a very good thing and taps into our human discomfort with mystery and the unknown. God certainly knows this. These useful and personal imaginings of heaven will always be more concrete than abstract. They are creatively made and available to us from literature, paintings, poetry, and music that we can embrace. They enrich, they inspire and comfort us. They provide a foundation and anchor for our hope for a better future for us and for those who have died. Now, some of these imaginings of heaven can be very, very personal and often whimsical. This past week, in fact, one of my absolutely favorite former Marines, our own Bill Endicott, he writes to me and told me, quote, "When the Army and Navy get to heaven's shores, they will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines." Now, for many, heaven is the answer place. In heaven, they will finally know whether Darwin was right and whether Babe Ruth or Willie Mays were the better hitter, right? But honestly, personally, I really don't want to know all the answers to everything. No, not really. Now, St. Thomas Aquinas chose to imagine a heaven in which he could walk into the arms of God. And while my Jewish friends are more focused on how to create heaven on earth than how to find it in the next life, one of my absolute favorite images of heaven comes from an old Hasidic story where a man is offered the opportunity to see both heaven and hell before he dies. First, he is taken to hell, where he sees a beautiful hall filled with people seated at banquet tables, sagging with wonderful delicacies. But those seated are miserable because their arms are tied in such a way that they cannot bring the food to their mouths. This was surely hell. Having seen hell, the visitor was taken to heaven. Arriving in heaven, the man saw the same hall with the same sagging tables and people who also had their arms tied such that they could not access the food themselves. But here, the room is filled with laughter, and the people looked happy and content. It was then that the visitor noticed the people were able to hold forks and spoons in their mouth, and by doing so, could feed each other. Heaven. Now, here in America, African Americans have gifted us compelling, comforting, and hopeful songs, images, and literature depicting a heaven that would finally free them from the pain and misery inflicted upon them. A place where there would be no more crying and no more dying. Thoughts of heaven provided them with hope and relief from the injustice they faced. So in closing, I want to share with you one of these beautiful, hopeful African American images of heaven. It is an excerpt from a poem by the great African American poet and lyricist James Weldon Johnson. He wrote it to commemorate his grandmother Caroline upon her death. It is entitled, "O Death." Day before yesterday morning, God was looking down from his great high heaven, looking down on all his children. And his eye fell on Sister Caroline, tossing on her bed of pain. And God's big heart was touched with pity. And God sat back on his throne and he commanded, "Call me Death." And Death heard the summons. And God said, "Go down, Death. Go down and find Sister Caroline and bring her to me." While we were watching round her bed, she turned her eyes and looked away. She saw what we couldn't see. She saw old Death coming like a falling star. But Death did not frighten Sister Caroline. He looked to her like a welcome angel and friend. And she whispered to us, "I'm going home." And she smiled and closed her eyes. And Death took her up like a baby into the glittering light of glory. And there he laid Sister Caroline on the loving breast of Jesus. And Jesus took his own hand and wiped away her tears, and he smoothed the furrows from her face, and Jesus rocked her in his arms and kept us saying, "Take your rest. Take your rest. Weep not. Weep not. She is not dead. She is resting in the bosom of Jesus." So join me today, this day celebrating the Ascension of Jesus. Join me in embracing your favorite metaphor for the eternal life. Embrace that. It is a very, very good thing. Amen. Amen.